Our next pattern is the layered pattern. So the layered pattern is basically just that. It's a bunch of different layers. And in the software realm, what that means is that we have these layers of technology. So the layers of technology only communicate within their own layers. So for example, this is a layer and this is a layer and this is a layer. So what we don't have is we don't have cross communication. We don't have these trying to call information from there like that. What we have is we have the ability to communicate back and forth and the ability to communicate back and forth like so. And then these only call within their respective layers. So you can see that maybe a slight disadvantage is if you have something here, it might have to trickle up to another layer. You might have to go through a couple of extra files, write a little extra code. But what it does is it classifies out the data so that if we're looking for it, let's say that, we have, this is our front end, this is our back end, and this is the connection between the two. If we have a back end problem, we know we're looking at, the program within this layer. And so this is still pretty abstract. So let's actually go through a little bit of an example right here. So the example I want to go over is a very popular layered pattern, and you might call this one a model because it's an actual thing you can implement. So it's called the model view controller. So for example, we will put the controller right here, and on the right side, we will put the view, and on the left side, we will put the model. So the model view controller breaks up the three different aspects here. On the right side, like I said, we have the view. The view is what's shown to the user. The view is what we can click on, what we can interact with. So in this situation, let's say that we have a profile page. So, there's the profile picture, and then we have a little form here to update the profile. So we have a box, and then the ability to actually submit that box. And maybe we're changing the name here. So this is what we're going to be trying to change, the name and the email. Now, with the model view controller, what we have on the left side is the model. So this is the database. This is our database that has the user here. So it's going to have the line for the user and then his name and email address. So we have the user, name, and then email address right there. And it has a whole bunch of these, a whole bunch of username, email, etc., etc. This is the model. This is the actual entity itself. So on the left side, we have the model, the entity. A lot of times it's the database where the sort of the data is actually stored. Now, what we don't want to have is this cross communication, this ability for the view to talk to the model. So what we do is we create something in the middle called the controller. So in the middle, what we have is we have the controller, and the controller handles all cross communication. So the model will contact the controller, and the controller will contact the view, and then vice versa. The view contacts the controller, and the controller contacts the model. So if, for example, we click the submit button here, the data that we updated is going to go to the controller. The controller is going to have some function, like maybe it's going to be a function called update user. And then with that function, it's then going to call down to the model. The model is then going to grab all that information that was put in here, and it's going to update the user. What does this do? What does this help us accomplish? Well, it helps us figure out where problems are. We have this database layer on the left, and we have this controller layer in the middle, and then we have this view layer on the right. So now we are able to figure out problems. We have the front end. This is the JavaScript and the HTML, so the sort of the view of things. And if something is messed up over here, we just look at the HTML, we look at the website itself. If we have a problem with data that's being inputted here and it's not making it to the model, well, we know there's a problem with the controller. So we look in the controller class, we look at the main thing that is actually controlling both of these sides. And then if the database is messed up, if we have data that's coming in, we know the controller is doing right, but for some reason the model isn't updating properly, well, we know to go look at the databases, to look at the MySQL, the different sort of ways that the database is storing things. It allows us this layer, it allows us this ability to classify and to also build different elements. We can have front-end developers here, we could have middle-end developers here, and we could have back-end developers here. Usually these two classes are covered by back-end developers, but you can also have a little bit of overlap where the front-end developers know a little bit here as well. Overall, though, the layered pattern is used quite a lot to classify our programs, to break them apart so that they can be easily maintained, so that there isn't a whole bunch of spaghetti code, and so that it makes sense to everyone involved.